She begged me to open our marriage. But the moment I found someone better, she called me the villain. What came next? She never saw it coming. Hey everyone, welcome back, and thanks again for being here. Today's story is a hard one to tell. It begins with compromise, a choice I made to try and preserve my marriage, but ends with a moment of absolute clarity that changed my life for the better. My name's Daniel, I'm 34 and I work as a mechanical engineer for a manufacturing firm. My wife, well now my ex-wife, is Lauren, 32, and she works in marketing for a mid-sized advertising agency. We'd been together for 8 years, married for 6. We had a beautiful little life, or so I thought. A cozy home in the suburbs, 2 spoiled cats, and for the past year, we'd been talking seriously about starting a family. Lauren has always been the social type, outgoing, quick to make friends, the kind of person who can walk into a room full of strangers and walk out with half of them added to her phone. I've always been more reserved. Not antisocial, just quieter. I've always admired her charm. It's part of what drew me to her in the first place. Over time, she built a close circle of girlfriends. Some from work, a few from our neighborhood, and several she met through a book club she joined about 3 years ago. I used to love that she had those friendships. It gave her a strong support system and gave me space to recharge in my own way. But about a year ago things started to shift. 2 of Lauren's closest friends, let's call them Ashley and Jenna, went through brutal, high-drama divorces. Ashley found out her husband had been cheating with his secretary. Jenna's husband left her for a younger woman he met at the gym. Both stories were painful and messy. Lauren and I did what we could to be there for them. I helped Ashley move out of her house. We invited Jenna over for dinner so she wouldn't feel alone. But as much as I tried to be supportive, I couldn't help but notice a change in the energy they brought into our lives. Their conversations began to take on a sharp edge. Everything was about betrayal, disappointment, and bitterness. They talked constantly about how men can't be trusted, how marriage was a trap designed to drain women of their potential. At first, Lauren would push back, gently defending our marriage whenever they made sweeping generalizations about husbands losing interest or all men eventually cheating. But over time, something changed in her too. Her responses to their negativity became quieter. Then they started turning into little half-agreements. She'd say things like, maybe they have a point, or, sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if I dated more before you. At first, I didn't think too much of it. Lauren had only had 2 serious relationships before me, and we got together when she was 24. I figured it was normal to reflect a little, especially when surrounded by friends nursing heartbreak. But then those little comments turned into regular questions. Questions about us. She'd ask if I still found her attractive. If I ever got bored. If I ever thought about what it would be like to be with other women. I always told her the truth, that I loved her, I was happy, and I wasn't looking for anything else. But she'd press further. How can you be so sure, she asked one night, if you've never experienced anything else? That hit me sideways. I didn't know how to respond. I chalked it up to her being influenced by her friend's pain. I assumed it would pass. It didn't. 4 months ago, after one of her regular girls' nights, she came home around midnight. I was asleep, but she woke me up, clearly emotional and more than a little buzzed. She sat on the edge of our bed and said, Daniel, I need to ask you something. And I need you to really think about your answer. Still half asleep, I asked what was going on. She took a deep breath and began what felt like a rehearsed monologue. She talked about how human beings aren't wired for monogamy, how ethical non-monogamy was becoming more common, and how some couples were happier and more connected after opening their relationships. Then she dropped the bomb. Ashley and Jenna think we should consider opening our marriage. They say it would help us appreciate what we have, and make sure we're choosing each other, not just settling into routine. I sat up in bed, stunned. Where is this coming from? I asked. Are you unhappy with us? She insisted she wasn't. That she loved me, that she just wanted to explore and be sure we weren't missing out on something. She said she wanted to be sure we were truly making the right choice being together forever. That monogamy was a construct. That we owed it to ourselves to make sure we weren't just staying married out of habit. I told her I needed time to think. She seemed disappointed but let it go for the night. Over the next few weeks the topic came up more and more. She sent me articles about successful open marriages. She played podcasts about couples who strengthened their bond by exploring other partners. She shared stories from Reddit threads, from Twitter, from acquaintances who were trying something new. So I started doing my own research. And what I found didn't ease my mind. Sure, there were stories of open marriages that worked. But they all had something in common. Both partners entered the arrangement with equal enthusiasm. The boundaries were crystal clear, the communication exhaustive, the respect unwavering. And most importantly, both people actually wanted it. What concerned me was that Lauren wanted this. I didn't. When I told her how I felt, that I was worried, uncomfortable, and unsure, she accused me of being closed-minded. She said I wasn't even trying to understand her. Ashley and Jenna think I'm being controlled, she told me, because you won't even consider what I need. Then came the jokes, light digs from her friends when they came over. Ashley would say things like, "Real men aren't afraid of a little competition." Jenna laughed once and said, "Wow, still insecure, Daniel?" All I could do was smile through it, wondering how we got here. And then one night, Lauren laid it all on the line. "I need to know if we're still choosing each other. I want to open the marriage. Just for 6 months. If we're meant to be, we'll come back stronger. If we're not, we'll know." It was an emotional trap. If I said no, I was controlling. If I said yes, I was agreeing to something that felt like slow-motion heartbreak. But I loved her. I didn't want her to resent me. So I compromised. 3 months, I said. That's all I can do. But we both have to agree, clear boundaries. No one comes to the house. Always protection. And we're honest about everything. She hugged me like I just passed some kind of test. Told me I was strong for trusting her. Said this would bring us closer. I should have known better. As soon as we agreed on the 3-month trial, it was like someone flipped a switch in Lauren. Within days, she had downloaded several dating apps. Tinder, Bumble, Hinge. She set up profiles, uploaded flattering photos, and polished up bios that didn't mention me or our marriage at all. She dove into it headfirst with a kind of giddy determination that honestly caught me off guard. I watched her swipe on her phone with this excited energy, smiling at her screen, occasionally giggling, sometimes showing me a message just to say, "Isn't this guy funny?" At first, I tried to keep it together. I told myself this was what I agreed to. That this would help us somehow like she said it would. She started going out on dates almost immediately. 2 nights a week at first, then sometimes 3. She'd dress up like she hadn't in a long time, extra effort with her makeup, heels I hadn't seen her wear in years, a perfume I used to associate with our anniversaries. She'd come home late, usually glowing, flushed, high off whatever new attention she'd soaked up. She never offered many details unless I asked, and when I did, she'd smile and say things like, "It was fun. Nothing serious. Don't worry." Meanwhile, I was in emotional freefall. I made a dating profile mostly because Lauren encouraged me to. "You'll feel better once you see it's not a big deal," she said. "Just talk to people, keep things light." But the truth is I wasn't ready, not even close. I spent most nights staring at my phone, swiping left more than right, feeling more anxious than curious. I'd agreed to this arrangement, but nothing about it felt okay. I wasn't even angry. I was numb. I was trying to make sense of the fact that the woman I loved, the one I'd promised to build a life with, was going out on romantic dates while I sat at home watching Netflix with our cats, pretending I didn't feel like a stranger in my own marriage. 3 weeks in, things got worse. That's when she started talking about Mark, a coworker she'd mentioned in passing before. Tall, charismatic, worked in creative at her firm. She'd always spoken of him in a neutral, professional way. But suddenly she had more to say. They'd started having lunch together. That led to drinks after work. Then one night she came home late, later than usual, and with a look on her face I hadn't seen in a long time. Soft, dreamy. Drunk on something, but it wasn't wine. "We hooked up," she said the next morning. "Mark and I. It just happened." I nodded. I didn't say much. I was too deep in it to argue. Too tired to fight. But I watched her after that, and it was clear. This wasn't just some fling. She was infatuated. Obsessed maybe. She texted him constantly. Even during dinner, she'd glance at her phone with this small smile she didn't try to hide. She'd laugh at things he said, then go quiet around me. She started checking out during our time together, skipping movie nights, brushing off our weekend plans. I finally asked, "Is this still about exploration? Or are you just in love with someone else?" She rolled her eyes. "You're being possessive. Jealous. This is exactly what my friends warned me about." Those friends, Ashley and Jenna, were all in. They'd come over for their girls' nights, open a bottle of wine, and I'd hear their voices through the walls. "Mark is such a man," Ashley said once. "He just gets you, Lauren." Jenna laughed and added, "Exactly. Finally, someone who lights a fire in you." The implication was clear. Whatever Lauren had with Mark was real, and whatever we had was old news. I stayed quiet. I tried to be strong. I'd agreed to 3 months and I was determined to see it through. But inside I was breaking. So I made a decision. I stopped pretending. Instead of just going through the motions with my profile, I actually made time to meet someone. Not out of spite. Not to compete, but because I realized I needed to understand what I was giving up, and what I might still be capable of feeling. That's when I met Rachel. It started small, coffee at a cafe near my office. She was 29, a graphic designer, recently out of a long-term relationship. We talked for almost 2 hours that first meeting. About books, movies, hiking trails, her job. What? Nothing heavy. Just easy, flowing conversation. It was the first time in months I felt seen. Rachel didn't know about Lauren at first. When I told her, she didn't flinch. She asked smart questions, respectful ones. We kept seeing each other. Coffee turned into lunch, then dinner, then weekends. But it wasn't fast or reckless. It wasn't about lust or rebellion. It was warmth. It was connection. She laughed at my dumb jokes. She asked about my work with real interest. She made me feel valuable. Like I wasn't just a placeholder in someone's life. Like I was still a man someone could want, not for a night but for a future. I felt alive again. And that's when Lauren started to unravel. By the time I told Lauren that I'd been seeing Rachel regularly, I honestly expected her to be relieved. This was, after all, what she had wanted, both of us exploring, both of us growing as individuals. But that's not how it went. Her reaction wasn't casual or open-minded or even calm. It was defensive, cold, almost panicked. She stared at me in silence for a moment, then asked in a clipped voice, "What's she like?" I shrugged, keeping it simple. "She's kind, smart, funny. We've been getting along well." Lauren frowned. "I thought you weren't really interested in dating anyone. You said you were just going to try it." I nodded. "I did try. And then I met someone who makes me feel good. Like I matter." Her tone shifted, hard. "This was supposed to be about exploring possibilities, Daniel. Not about replacing what we have." I looked at her, stunned. "Lauren, you've been seeing Mark for over a month. Exclusively. You barely come home before midnight. You text him at the dinner table." "That's different," she snapped. "Mark is helping me understand what I need from a partner. He's part of my growth." "And what is Rachel to me then?" I asked. "A distraction? An escape from the thing you threw me into?" She folded her arms and looked away. "You're not even trying anymore." That was her angle now, that I had failed the experiment. That I wasn't doing the emotional labor of fighting for our marriage while she was free to fall in love with another man in the name of clarity. I felt a heat rise in my chest, not anger exactly, but the slow burn of realization. She didn't want equality. She wanted permission. She wanted freedom, but with a safety net. That same night, her friends came over again, Ashley and Jenna. I retreated to my home office to get some work done, but the walls in our house are thin, and their voices carried like knives. "He's not supposed to be dating someone seriously," Ashley said, loud enough for me to hear every word. This was about Lauren figuring out what she needs. "He's being selfish," Jenna added, completely missing the point. "He's supposed to be working on the marriage, not checking out." Then I heard something that flipped a switch in me. Lauren said, "I just feel like he gave up. Like he's not even trying to win me back." That was it. I'd spent weeks suffering through lonely nights, watching my wife fall for another man, keeping quiet while her friends mocked me under my own roof, and somehow she was framing it as me abandoning her? The next morning she sat me down. Her face was tight with concern, but her eyes were strangely blank. "I've been thinking," she said. "I want to end the open marriage. I think we should refocus on us." I nodded slowly. "All right." Her tone softened, like she was preparing to be delicate. "But I also think you need to end things with Rachel. Completely. If we're going to fix this, there can't be distractions." I couldn't even believe what I was hearing. "So let me get this straight," I said calmly. "You want to stop our open arrangement, but only after months of seeing Mark? And while you're still seeing him, you want me to break up with Rachel because your friends think I'm not being man enough?" She didn't answer right away. "That's different," she finally said. "Mark isn't about replacing you. He's about understanding myself. Rachel is just helping you run away." I sat there, letting her words settle over me like cold ash. Then I smiled. "Absolutely, honey," I said. "I'll end it right now." She looked relieved. She nodded and started saying how proud she was of me, how this was a good first step in rebuilding. But I was already walking to the bedroom. I opened the top drawer of my nightstand, pulled out a manila envelope and returned to the kitchen table. I laid it in front of her without a word. She stared at it for a second, then looked up. "What's this?" "I'm ending it," I said quietly. "Not with Rachel. With you. These are divorce papers. I had them drawn up last week." Her mouth opened but no sound came out. She blinked as if trying to reset the conversation. Wait, no. That's not what I meant. I thought we could start fresh. I thought you wanted to work on this? I shook my head. I did. I gave you what you asked for. And then you used it to pursue someone else while keeping me in a cage. I learned everything I needed to know about our marriage these last 3 months. I didn't mean for it to get this far, she said, her voice rising. You're overreacting. You're throwing everything away over one mistake. I didn't even raise my voice. This wasn't one mistake. It was months of choices. You made yours. Now I'm making mine. It's been 3 weeks since I handed Lauren those papers. And in that short time, my world has shifted in ways I didn't expect. Some hard, some healing. At first, Lauren didn't believe I was serious. She thought the divorce threat was a bluff, a final plea for attention. She kept texting, calling, saying we needed to talk, to slow down, to reconsider. She even showed up to my office once, unannounced, with homemade cookies and this tight, rehearsed smile. You're not thinking clearly, she said. We've built too much to throw it all away. I told her calmly, that's exactly why I'm walking away. We built something. And then you let other people talk you into burning it down. She cried. She got angry. She tried to guilt me, saying I'd betrayed the marriage by falling for Rachel instead of fighting for us. But I'd already done my fighting. And frankly, I was tired of swinging at air. The irony? Marcus, the guy Lauren threw it all away for, bailed on her as soon as he heard she was getting divorced. The minute there was no longer a ring on her finger, his texts slowed, his excuses piled up, and eventually he just told her the truth. He never saw her as a long-term partner. He liked the thrill, the forbidden flirtation. But now that she was available, the chase was over. Lauren was devastated. The guy she'd pinned her emotional hopes on disappeared the moment commitment became real. Mutual friends told me she cried for days, blaming herself, then blaming me. But mostly she blamed Rachel. She replaced me, she told Ashley one day, loud enough for someone to overhear and relay. Daniel was just looking for someone to make him feel special again. He should have fought harder. But here's the thing, Rachel never replaced Lauren. Rachel just showed me what wasn't supposed to feel like walking on eggshells. She didn't try to fix me. She didn't feed me mantras from Reddit threads or lecture me about how men were emotionally stunted. She just listened. We didn't dive headfirst into some sweeping romance. We went slow. We met for coffee, then walks, then quiet dinners. We talked about childhood dreams, bad dates, the books that made us cry, and the fears we kept hidden from most people. With Rachel, I felt human again. Not a failing husband. Not an experiment. Just a man who'd spent too long trying to make someone else feel whole while losing himself in the process. Lauren, meanwhile, spiraled. She tried dating again, but the reality of dating in your 30s after a divorce hit her hard. The charm and confidence that worked on Marcus didn't seem to impress anyone else. Her friends started drifting away too, especially once Lauren became single competition instead of the wounded bird they could advise. She made one last attempt about 2 weeks ago. She called and asked to meet in person. I agreed, thinking maybe she wanted closure or to settle something practical. But when we sat across from each other at that coffee shop, her eyes were red-rimmed and her voice shaky. Can we just hit reset? She asked. Try again? You and me. No outside noise this time. I looked at her and almost didn't recognize the woman I married. Not because she looked different, but because I'd changed. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't bitter. I just didn't want to go back to the version of myself that had spent years being told I wasn't enough unless I proved it constantly. I told her, I appreciate you being honest. But I'm not the same man who sat on that bed and agreed to your experiment. And I don't want to be. She said I was being cruel. That a stronger man would have fought harder. That walking away was the easy option. But walking away had been the hardest thing I'd ever done. And it was also the most necessary. 6 months have passed since the divorce was finalized. I'm officially a free man, legally and emotionally. There were no kids, no long court battles, and thanks to our prenup and mutual understanding, splitting our assets went smoothly. Lauren kept the house. She'd always loved it more than I did anyway, and I took my share of the savings and moved into a smaller place closer to my office. Peaceful. Quiet. Mine. Rachel has been my constant through this entire transition. She never rushed me. Never pressured me. She gave me space to grieve what I lost, even when it meant hearing about the parts of Lauren that used to make me smile. Because that's what healthy love does. It holds space for the complicated stuff. The past, the regret, the lessons. Rachel isn't threatened by where I've been, because she's too focused on where we're going. And where we're going feels incredible. We got engaged last month. It wasn't some grand gesture or public spectacle. It was just the two of us on a foggy morning hike, standing on a ridge watching the world wake up. I pulled out the ring and asked, "Want to keep walking through life with me?" She laughed through tears and said yes. It was simple. Honest. Everything my last relationship wasn't. Lauren? From what I hear through mutual friends, she's still struggling. Marcus is long gone. Her friendships with Amanda and Jenna imploded. Apparently, the camaraderie vanished when real jealousy entered the room. Now they're all just single women in their 30s, chasing the same kind of attention they once mocked other women for needing. And Lauren is angry. She's angry that her freedom didn't come with the admiration she expected. That men aren't lining up with flowers and good intentions. That emotional roller coasters don't feel like passion when there's no one left at the end of the ride. One friend told me Lauren called our open marriage the biggest mistake of her life. But for me, it was the best thing that ever happened. Because it ripped away the comfort of complacency. It forced both of us to confront what we really wanted. And it gave me permission to stop trying to be enough for someone who was always convinced there might be something better just around the corner. That's the lesson I carry with me now. Real love doesn't test you. It doesn't dangle acceptance like a prize you have to earn. It doesn't ask you to sacrifice your peace for someone else's validation. It shows up. Every day. Even when things are hard. Even when you're both flawed. Especially then. So, if you're in a place where you're questioning your worth because someone made you feel like you weren't enough, hear me now. You are. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to compete. And you sure as anything don't have to sit beside someone who's already walked out emotionally. Walk out first. Find someone who doesn't make you prove you're worthy of staying. Because that's what I did. And I've never looked back. I thought once the papers were signed and we went our separate ways. But Arye comes slowly. In quiet moments. And I am. For the first time in a long time. I really am. Lauren though. Not so much. A few weeks after the divorce she texted me out of the blue. It was short. Just, "Do you ever miss what we had?" I stared at the screen for a while. Not because I didn't know how to answer, but because I did. I typed, deleted, typed again. Then finally replied. "I miss who I thought you were. But I don't miss being with someone who made me feel like I was never enough." She never responded. Mutual friends tell me she tried to rebound hard. Fast flings, louder parties, constant attempts to chase whatever high she thought Marcus had given her. But it all fizzled. One friend said she cried at a dinner party after one too many glasses of wine, saying she didn't realize how hard dating would be without someone to go home to. Amanda and Jenna? They're still around but distant. That fierce loyalty vanished when real consequences entered the picture. Once they realized they couldn't blame every outcome on men, the cracks in their support system widened. It turns out bitterness isn't the same thing as strength. And validation doesn't equal happiness. I think Lauren finally sees that now. Meanwhile, I found a new rhythm. Life with Rachel isn't perfect. No relationship is, but it's peaceful, and that matters more than I ever understood when I was with Lauren. We laugh more than we argue. We make plans and actually keep them. We have hard conversations and leave them feeling closer, not more confused. The other day she looked at me across the kitchen table, unprompted, and said, "You make me feel like home." That hit me hard. Because I spent years in a house that looked perfect, but never truly felt like home. It felt like compromise. Like measuring my worth against someone else's whims. Now, I come home to someone who doesn't need to test me to believe in me. A full year has passed since I handed Lauren those divorce papers. It still amazes me how much life can change when you stop clinging to what's falling apart and start reaching for what feels whole. Rachel and I moved in together a few months ago. It wasn't some grand declaration, we just fit. One day we realized we were spending nearly every night together, sharing morning coffee routines, swapping grocery lists, folding each other's laundry without even thinking about it. So, we found a place that felt like ours. She brought her plants. I brought my books. And together we built something soft and steady. Something safe. Last weekend, while hiking a trail upstate we'd both fallen in love with on one of our earliest dates, I paused near the lookout, heart racing, not from the climb but from the small velvet box in my jacket. She turned to look at the view, wind brushing through her hair, and I knew. No test. No drama. Just a simple truth. I dropped to one knee. She turned back. Her breath caught. And all I said was, "You make me feel like I'm finally living the life I used to only imagine. Will you build the rest of it with me?" She cried. Then nodded. And whispered, "Of course." That night we sat on the porch, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. And I thought about how much time I spent trying to be enough for someone who never really saw me. Now I'm with someone who doesn't need convincing. Someone who loves me not because she's searching, but because she's already found what matters. I don't hate Lauren. I don't wish her pain. I hope someday she finds peace. I really do. But I'm done trying to fix people who make me feel broken. This life I have now, it's not perfect, but it's honest, and it's mine. And that's more than enough. The day after Rachel and I announced our engagement to friends and family, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a text. A real letter. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name, written in delicate, looping cursive I hadn't seen in over a year. Inside was a single page folded crisply. David, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect a response. I just need to say this once out loud and then I'll leave you alone forever. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And I destroyed that. I confused chaos with freedom. I mistook validation for love. I blamed you because I didn't have the courage to look inward. I see that now. Marcus never loved me. Not really. He ghosted me 2 weeks after the divorce was final. Said I was too much. Said I needed help. And maybe he was right. I've been in therapy since. A lot of it. They say healing isn't linear. Some days I still wake up angry. But most days I just miss being the version of myself I was when I was with you. Don't worry, I'm not writing to win you back. I know that door is closed and I respect it. But you deserve to hear from the woman who never said thank you properly. Thank you for loving me when I didn't know how to love myself. Thank you for choosing peace when I chose noise. And thank you for walking away. You saved us both even if it didn't feel that way at the time. I hope your next chapter is everything we dreamed of, and none of the pain we lived through. Be happy truly. That's all I ever wanted. I just didn't know how to give it back then. Lauren. I stared at the page for a long time, the silence in the house broken only by the wind nudging the trees outside. Rachel came in from the kitchen, 2 mugs of tea in hand, smiling. I folded the letter, placed it gently in the drawer of my desk, and turned to meet her smile with my own. Everything okay? She asked. I nodded. Yeah. Just letting go of one last thing. And for the first time I felt it fully. Closure. Not the kind that slams a door,